You either believe in a God or you don't.
We're not evil. You know a lot more of us than you think you do.
I've been sworn in before. I've put my hand on the Bible before. It's pretend.
I'm an atheist, and that does not mean I'm a persecutor of anyone's beliefs. And I don't believe in God in any of its traditional trappings.
And I remember saying to myself aloud, there is no God. I was waiting for the lightning to strike, and it didn't. It took weeks, maybe months, for me to really become comfortable with the fact that this is all there is. This is it.
Being religious is not something I can do. Believing in a God, not something I can do. But I can certainly understand why people do. It's just not my thing.
We're not these soulless, empty beings.
We definitely don't eat babies and don't worship the devil.
Simply am an atheist.
If you grew up in the South, chances are you were raised around religion, went to church, or at least learned about the Bible from friends and family. It's just the way it is here. For many, religion and beliefs are paramount. But what if you were an atheist? What if you didn't believe? What if God didn't exist and church was meaningless? In this edition of AIB Presents, we sit down with several non-believers to explore what it means to be an atheist in the Bible Belt. The Bible Belt. Informally, it's the southeastern United States, and it's filled with Bibles, churches, and the devout. Black, white, Pentecostal, evangelical, Protestant, Catholic. Many people in this region have an affiliation with a church, a religion, or a God, and it's unusual to find someone who doesn't belong to some religious community. Everywhere you look, it seems there's church and God to be found.
There are places where I go where there's a church that's down the street from a church, that's down the street from a church, was across the street from another church, was up the street from another church, and they're building a church across from that church. I feel like, it's in everything.
No matter where you live in Atlanta, I don't care if it's upscale, downscale, or in between scale, you're still gonna get, for the most part, a certain mindset. You're gonna have churches on every corner.
It's a built-in community. It's an easy way to be a human being.
Unless you are, like these people, a non-believer, an atheist. An atheist is defined many ways, and according to Webster's dictionary, it is one who believes that there is no God.
To me, it means that I'm not hindered by anything that a book tells me. There's no doctrine to follow, there's no scripture. I do everything in my day that you do. I accomplish the same things in my day that you do. I have ups and downs just like you do. I have depressions and happy times just like you do. I just don't attribute any of that to an immortal deity or any type of belief system. I just, I do the same things, and I don't need to pray to anybody about it.
Atheism is just simply lack of belief in a God, in any gods. And to me, how I try to apply that to my life is, and I encourage everyone to apply that, is to not live in fear, to definitely use your mind and use your set of use your critical thinking skills. Think for yourself, define certain things and define yourself. You don't have to be scared of life. You don't have to live in fear that some being is going to smite or spite you because you don't believe in him. To me, it's a liberating it's a liberating stance.
I can't prove that there isn't a God. They can't prove that there is a God. So when it comes to that, I don't have any proof. I don't have any way of proving that. So my thing is, I say no. I don't believe in a God. I don't think there is a God. I can't prove there isn't a God. But if there was a God, I wouldn't worship him anyway because of all the things he allows to happen.
We're human just like everyone else. We do get scared at times. We do feel discouraged at times. We're not these soulless, quote unquote, soulless, empty beings. We actually care a lot about people, and we care a lot about helping people, and that is where the humanist ideas lie within a lot of us.
Many atheists remember moments early in life when they began to question or doubt the existence of a higher power. And in the Bible Belt, that can cause a lot of internal conflict.
I thought the world would come to an end, honestly. I mean, because I was told that that wasn't even an option, not to believe. You have to believe because it's true, because we told you that it's true. And I felt like there was something wrong with me. And I remember being on the playground as a kid in my Catholic school uniform, just coming from confession, and being totally freaked out in my head because I couldn't believe this stuff that they were telling me.
There was one summer that I was spending with my grandmother when I was about 8 years old, and I was being a real hellion. And she told me that I should pray to God to be good. And I tried it, and it did not work. And that was my first kind of, well, if God's supposed to be powerful, then why is he making me be good?
And I remember asking my grandmother and other, church people who stopped by the house, why doesn't the Bible mention any dinosaurs? And I always got the vague answers that, to me, in hindsight, says they never even asked that question. So that really threw me off as well.
And there was another time, one of those little golden books that my grandmother gave me had the story of Jesus, the story of Jesus's birth. And they had a little picture of Jesus and Mary and Joseph. And I went to my grandmother and I said, oh, okay, so this is God, right? And I was pointing to Joseph. And she said, no, that's God's invisible. You can't see God. That didn't make any sense to me. Because if God is the father of Jesus, then he obviously needs to be there.
Going to a Catholic school and being really raised Catholic with all the catecheticals and catechesis really helped my atheism. When something came up that didn't sound right, there was always some really lame explanation on why they couldn't explain it, and I shouldn't ask the question. And I've always been a person who likes to ask questions, and I like to know why things are the way they are and why things work or not. And when they couldn't answer that, that really put doubts in my head, but that really frightened me because I knew I wasn't supposed to be feeling like that.
It's really been a long time. I was like 11 or 12 when someone gave me the word atheist, but I didn't believe in God, I think intuitively, maybe for 5 or 6 years before that. I don't ever remember having, I never had an epiphany. I always had questions, and those questions could never really be answered. It was really just me working through answering questions. You're a little kid, everything's simplified for you. So you have this idea that God controls everything, is a simple way to say it. God controls everything. He made everything. He loves you. So you pray and things happen, or, but then they don't. So you're like, okay. So that's inconsistent. And then you see, I don't know, the natural world you see happening. Your pets die or something, and you pray and it's still dead. So there you go.
I think I've always had my questions and my doubts, but I think I finally came to the realization that I didn't believe in a God when might have been my mid-20s. I think I was watching something. I saw some atrocity on TV, and it just dawned on me. I'm like, there can't be a God, because why is this happening?
It's not unusual to find atheists who previously believed in God, or atheists that may have even had a relationship with the divine. Non-believer Shantae Terry recalls feeling a connection with God.
I remember feeling very happy and very secure in church and in prayer. And then there were other times that I did feel like nothing. And I wonder to myself even now, what were those thoughts? And sometimes I think it had to do with the situation that I was in at the time, when I really felt like I needed saving. And, I'm like begging God to help. And I remember the older I got, the less I felt. So I wonder if it was training, or just my own mind just pleading for something out there to assist me.
Though some questioned the existence of the divine as children, others, like Gino Cole, didn't start questioning until they were older.
I never really went through the thought process until my mom actually brought it up and everything. But I just always thought, like, I'm a Christian, everybody else is Christian. I should probably just be that.
Growing up Christian, you don't really seek outside sources. You know there are other religions. Of course, there's Muslims and there's Mormons and, there's all types of religions, but you don't really study them. You don't really know what they're about. And when I saw this documentary, I recognized initially, I kind of laughed, like they're being so silly. They're jumping around and dancing around. And just as quickly as that thought came into my head, I thought, well, that's what you look like at church. So how can I laugh when, that's all they know, the same as me?
With this realization, Shantae began her search for answers about God and religion.
So my journey started with just, what do all the other religions believe? And I read the Bible completely. I read the Quran completely. And so it started that way. I didn't even know what secular was or what that meant. I had no knowledge of it. But what happened is the more I read different religious texts, the more they all had a certain similarity, which was there is one particular man who said, I came from God and you must believe me. And so I just started to seek out other options, And that's when I came across secularism.
These thoughts and conclusions don't come about lightly or easily. It's often seen as a personal loss and can have a period of mourning.
After all of my research, and I just decided to go where the evidence led, whatever that was. I wasn't going to be afraid of it anymore. It took a long time, several years of searching and looking, because I just didn't want to let it go. And finally, I thought to myself, it's been 3 years. You've been doing this. You've been reading all these texts, and you've been, you've just been studying like crazy. This is it. You just have to face it.
Knowing what you believe is contrary to the dominant ideology can be frightening. Realizing that losing your religion also means losing friends and family can be more so.
My husband and I have probably been on this path for a long time. When I met him, he was probably the only guy I've ever met who had read the Quran, the Talmud, the part of the Bhagavad Gita. And I was like, wow. So we would sit there and discuss different parts of different philosophies and world religion. And it felt like a clandestine conversation that we were not supposed to be having. And it quickly became very real to us that we didn't believe this stuff that we were being told. But we knew that if we walked away from this, there's a big part of our lives we would have to walk away from too.
It was very scary initially. I was very sad, thinking that everything that I thought my whole life was just not, it wasn't reality. It wasn't real. And I had to come to grips with, how do I live in this world now with a totally different mindset? It was like putting on another set of glasses. Things looked so much differently. It was very scary. And I remember saying to myself aloud, there is no God. I was waiting for the lightning to strike, and it didn't. And it took a long time. I have to keep repeating that to myself, because it's so ingrained in your head that this is how it is, and this is the only way. So it was a scary moment, and it actually, I would say that moment stretched. It took weeks, maybe months, for me to really become comfortable with the fact that this is all there is. This is it.
Having views that are in direct opposition to seemingly everyone you know or meet can cause you to put up walls, build barriers to protect yourself, as Felicia Smith did.
I kind of shied away from the word atheism for years, simply because I felt that people responded negatively to atheism. So I publicly identified as agnostic, because I thought it was middle of the road. It was kind of a safe word, and people would embrace it more. But fear, a lot of that is fear. And it's, I fall prey to that still. It's like, well, sometimes you don't know how you're going to be perceived, so it kind of colors what your delivery might have been, or how, I guess, how deeply you express yourself because you're so fearful about how the other person or people are going to take it. But I feel like I learned early to hide. And hide is such a bad word, but I learned somewhere, it's not like anybody told me, but I just learned like, well, don't talk about certain things. Don't allow yourself to be in a position where people can ask you questions about certain things. Like in Atlanta, for Black people, where do you go to church? And like I said, nobody told me to do it. I just learned it. Like, well, if you tell people you don't like to go to church, that's troubling to them. And that's a conversation I just learned early on that I didn't want to have with people.
Part of putting up these barriers and hiding your beliefs is simply to pretend. Mandisa believes there are places of worship in the Bible Belt filled with those keeping their true beliefs a secret.
There are a lot of non-believers. There are a lot of doubters and skeptics that still go to church out of obligation. You know, their parents or their spouses and their loved ones still go, and they're sitting there. They probably don't believe any of the teachings. They may like the social aspect, they like the music, they like the fellowship, but as far as the teachings and the doctrine itself, they probably don't believe in that. And it may be difficult for them to even admit that because it ties so much into this social dynamic.
While many religions tout peace and acceptance for all, many atheists have faced discrimination for their secular beliefs.
And with both my children, the 17-year-old and the 10-year-old, there's been incidents. We've had to pull my son out of school because he was being bullied and harassed because he did not believe. And he stood up for rights for the LGBT community, as we teach at our home, that human rights are human rights. My 10-year-old was told by a friend of hers that she'd been friends with since kindergarten that she couldn't be around her anymore because her mother said she didn't want to lead her daughter to hell. And it's rough because as a mother, you feel like, well, maybe I should have lied. Maybe I should have told them, you know, there's a God, so I wouldn't have to see them hurt like this. She caught so much drama last year. And so she came up to me during the summer, and we were working on something. She loves crafting. And she says, Mom, you know what, this year, would it be okay if I just pretend to believe in God? And so that's like a needle across the record sound effect. And I went, wait a minute, what? I said, why would you do that? I said, you know, do you believe in God? And, you know, just wanted to see where her head was. No, I think it's really silly, but I figure if I say that I would, people would leave me alone. And I could just live my life. Because she wasn't invited to some birthday parties last year because of this. So I understand where she's coming from. But I told her, no, sweetie, you don't surrender the power to define yourself ever to anyone, including us. You are who you are. And you can change at any time you want to, but make sure that change is coming from a place where it feels right to you, not because you're trying to appease somebody else. Because if that's the only way they'll accept you, they're not your friends. We've discussed moving to more progressive parts of the country, and we've even discussed leaving the country altogether just to see what it's like to live in a place that religion isn't so dominant.
The ultimate truth is that everyone will die, period. What happens after is something atheists and those who believe in God both wonder.
I don't know. I don't know. As a child, as a kid, I used to wonder about that all the time. I used to think about what it was like to die, what happens when we die, and it scared the crap out of me. I mean, and it still does. And I tried to reconcile that there may be a heaven that I would go to, but I just couldn't because no one has ever come back from the dead to say that there's a heaven or hell. And I've just come to the most logical conclusion is that, you know, when we're dead, we're dead. Our bodies just deteriorate, and you know, it's just what happens. It's not a pleasant thought because it's sort of a comfort mechanism. It's comforting to think that there's an afterlife for us, but that idea never comforted me. I just could never reconcile that. Again, another thing I couldn't reconcile because there was no proof.
A common misconception of atheists is that with no scripture to guide them, they couldn't possibly know right from wrong.
I'm an atheist, and that does not mean I'm a persecutor of anyone's beliefs. And I don't believe in God in any of its traditional trappings. It's important that you know that I am not alone. I know I'm not alone in the universe. I'm not alone on this planet. I'm not alone in this room. You know what I mean? I feel a connection with my fellow man. I'm not without spirit, and I'm not without love, and I'm not without passion. Those driving forces exist, and I am dictated by a conscience, and I won't hurt someone weaker than me, and I will try to protect people that aren't. And I don't need judgment to motivate me to do that. I'd encourage everyone to feel that way regardless of how you want to qualify your beliefs. It's hard to put down anger, but if you can, do it. If I can do it, I will. And I will say that I will mess up, and I am not perfect, as none of us are, and I will just always try to come to terms with and be better next time.
In order to do good, in order to help people, it doesn't have to require that people believe as you do. It shouldn't require that people just do the same thing. As an atheist, somebody trying to do good, I'm not going to tell you that all of a sudden you have to stop believing in God before I help you. Because that is not something that, as much as I would love for people to reconsider that belief, especially if it's holding you back, it is not something that I could reasonably do. Because if you need the help, you need the help. It doesn't matter whether you believe in a God or not.
I believe that everybody has a right to life, a right to happiness, and a right to be free and take care of themselves and those they care about. If someone needs me, I'm there for them. I know this without needing a God to tell me this, because that's who I am. So the idea that I would not know right from wrong if it weren't for this book is not only absurd, it's almost insulting.
I don't always know right from wrong. I just try to think, it's weird because the things that are good about religion, those are archetypes. Those are things that you will find in all scripts. Don't steal from people, everybody's religion says that. Don't kill people, everybody's religion says that. And they'll dress it up in different stories, maybe it'll just be a sentence, but those sort of things, I didn't need the Bible. I did have good people raise me, I wasn't neglected, sometimes strict, sometimes with a large amount of love. I don't want to put my faith in magic. I put it in myself. I can overcome things. And when I'm not sure, that's when I have to really step into it. Okay, I will walk face first into everything that scares me because it scares me. So that's the magnet.
Probably two of the strangest misconceptions of atheists are that they eat babies and worship the devil.
That we definitely don't eat babies and don't worship the devil. It gets tired. It's tiring to hear that question over and over again. It kind of upsets me sometimes, but then I understand because I once thought the same way. And if nobody really points it out to you and you're growing up like that, I can understand why they would think that. You wouldn't have any reason to question it. But I guess it's just how they grow up.
Atheist is not synonymous with faith hater. Disbelief is not disdain.
As time went on, I still was very interested in religion, and I love reading about all kinds of religions and talking to people about religion, but it was more of an academic curiosity than actual wanting to find something to believe in, because it seemed religion is so prevalent. Religion is it's a part of everybody's life, and whether they go to church regularly or not. Even if people don't go to church regularly, but I still believe in God and just haven't found the right church home or whatever. And it seemed if this is something that everybody does, why can't I just fall comfortably into whatever religion it is? The more that I talked about religion, the more I studied different religions, the more I even just thought about it because I think about it a lot, actually. The more it seemed that it's being religious is not something that I can do. Believing in a God, not something I can do. But I can certainly understand why people do. It's just not my thing.
I never went around trying to convert you in the other way. I think that's a big key for anyone who identifies themselves as atheist. Is part of this is that there's not a mission. There's not a mission to change you. I believe this and I want to, and believe what you want to believe. It's so crazy that there's this concept of persecution because we just want to leave you alone. I meet people who, they just want to be a good person. They have a fear of this idea of letting go of God, or a fear of their own mortality, but they don't think there's a dude in a beard in a robe sitting up there, doling out judgment and universes. They do. If you really get down to like you physically believe there is a man, so God is a dude with feet and sandals because you need that in outer space.
I love watching people in church. I actually, I just wonder, like, what are they thinking? I try to pick out which ones I think are faking it and which ones I think really believe. So I really do like watching people in church.
Stop looking at me like I'm a leper because I don't agree with your God, even though you don't agree with that guy's God. That guy doesn't agree with your God. Neither one of you agree with that guy's God. And you're sitting up here picking straws about who is the better person based on the God you believe in. I think that's a ridiculous idea.
So I just want people to understand that we're human too, and we're not trying to hurt anybody, and we're not trying to take your religion away from you. I believe in the right for you to believe what you want to believe, but the minute that comes out of your church and you want to have people live in a theocracy, that's the minute I'm going to fight you back. But until that time, we're fine. I'm a human just like everybody else.
It's not a God. There's not a separate thing. When you zoom out of an atom, it makes me up. When you zoom out of me, it makes up the universe, and if you can just keep zooming out of the universe, it's gonna make up something else, And I have a value to that universe the way that like a cork has a value to me, Absolutely unaware of it, but if it's working, I'm working, it's working. And I just don't think that's a titan. I think that's all of us.
Most people would tell you there are things beyond our control. Whether you are a follower of a faith or an atheist, we are all subject to the unknown. We all have questions that cannot be definitively answered. And maybe that's what we all have in common.